Hello there and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevicius. Good afternoon, dear listeners. We are at the National Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis School of Art in Vilnius, and we will be having a wonderful conversation with Lithuanian composer Teisutis Makacinas. And we're here today to talk about his newest work, the upcoming premiere of the organ symphony, sonata symphony, which is number 6, which is called number 6 festive sonata symphony, and this symphony is dedicated to the 15th anniversary of the reconstruction of the largest pipe organ in Lithuania, which is in Vilnius University St. Church. So let's start there, Professor, in talking a little bit about how did you come up with the idea to create this 6 sonata symphony, the festive symphony. Well, first of all, I was lucky enough to be in the presence of the events that led to the reconstruction of this instrument. I was on the committee which actually made decisions about how the reconstruction process will going to be. So I was participating with the organ restorer Rimontas Gučas, and I remember His Magnificency Rector of Vilnius University Rolandas Paviljonis, who led to this decision, and he was very supportive of this idea to reconstruct this instrument and found some financial support, and this is very, very gigantic work to recreate this instrument of this scale, 64 stops, and so many work were ahead of that, but the rector was very supportive. So when I heard about the 15th anniversary in 2015 of this instrument, I came up with the idea to create a large opus, because this instrument works Vidas Pinkevicius, who actively promotes the organ and also knows them inside out. I was participating in several of his concerts and also saw how he works, and I expect maximum result. Yes. So I want to remind our listeners that Professor Teisutis Makacinas was my first teacher of improvisation at Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre in Vilnius. And I remember when at the first year, his improvisation class, several of our students came together and to learn some secrets of organ improvisation. And this was very difficult because the first year was very, fresh, new, and we didn't have a lot of experience with organ. But anyway, this class left tremendous influence on me because improvisation, organ improvisation, follows me to this day. I'm very happy to hear that. This class, improvisation class, reminds me of those good times when studies at Lithuanian Academy of Music were very important in academic sense, which is not the case today. In other words, organists had individual lessons to learn and try out, experiment with improvisation. And I came up with the idea to take some method books and to teach them. But I am not an organist myself, so I had to come up with the lesson plan and everything. But I thought, because I'm a composer, I I had a few things to say about the extemporaneous improvisation as well. Yes, your this sincere wish to inspire us to the world of organ improvisation is very important to me. And we also remember that organists today in Lithuania mostly play what is written, mostly from the past, a few hundred years ago, and only a few of us dare to improvise in public. So I was very lucky to get the chance to study with you. And I think improvisation is very, very important, vital, essential part of organist study, because it helps to revitalize organist essential creative skills. And a few of my students became composers as well. A few also are quite active in the field of musical creation, either on paper or at the instrument. I believe we can create the entire life, not only during our study assignments at the Academy of Music, but that entire life is a creative field, right? Either to create at the instrument or on the table with the paper or on the computer. And by the way, I would like to ask you about your compositional process, okay? Because we will be premiering this 6th sonata symphony by yours, and I'm very curious, how did you what was the compositional process? Okay, I know that you started creating in July, a few months ago, 3 months ago, and I'm wondering whether you start with the small fragment of paper where you notate all these themes, or you start thinking about that. Please tell us a little bit about that. So first of all, I don't write the sounds itself, but I think about the atmosphere, about the character of the work, and I had to have 3 months about that, for this work to focus and to think about that work. And from outside world, it should look really strange, because I was walking around the room, basically from window to window, meditating about that work. And then I started to improvise on the keyboard as well. And then these unique ideas, musical ideas and intonations came into my head as well, because I wanted to really create this work for the occasion of this festive anniversary. And then suddenly the fugue, the theme for the fugue took place also, and leitmotif as well. But once this came to be, the entire work started to be much more visible. When I was studying this work, dear professor, I was noticing many details about your work, about intonations, about rhythmical characters, which I can't really describe all of them. But I have to say that this work suits particularly well to this mechanical organ at our church. have you ever been to this church? Have you ever played this instrument? Because I'm wondering, how did you really created this instrument that it's so easy to play in that church? All right. Although the sonata has many modern sounds and even I would say modes, but it fits particularly well for the instrument because of the form, of the structural identity, because we always feel the form of the piece, and it's so easy to change the stops because of these rests. First of all, Vidas Pinkevicius warned me about some of the things about this organ. You have to know that there are 5.5 seconds of reverberation, large reverberation, especially at night. So my first assignment was not to make the work, like a vinaigrette, like a cacophony, but really to listen to the rests and to the acoustics. But I am the student of Julius Juzeliūnas, one of the greatest Lithuanian composers of 20th century. And he was very big proponent of modal writing. Not in the absolute temperament writing, but in modal writing. So he believed that only in modal things we can find some uniqueness as Lithuanians. So therefore this modal writing let's to create some kind of vital character of this piece, which is inherently Lithuanian. And I also use these intonations that are dear to the Lithuanian's heart, not necessarily take citations from music, but only characteristic intonation, not citations from folk songs. Yes, I noticed that you don't really cite folk melodies, only the small intonations, fragments, intervals. And I also noticed that in Lithuanian 20th century composers' output in general, this creative output is very Lithuanian, so to say. It's very elegic, melancholic maybe. It's hard to find very festive works in Lithuanian 20th century organ music, which is not the case with your work, right? Just like in Western European French composers, right? Like after the Mass, organists play splendid postludes and sorties to lead the people into the world after the liturgy. And I also see these festive signs also in your work, Professor. Am I right? Yes, you are right. But I have to admit that I wrote this work in a very difficult period of my life. I wasn't active as organ composer for quite a while before that, because I was busy editing my compositions in the lighter style, because I am the composer of music of of entertainment from entertainment period, and I wanted to re-edit those works to make them available today on paper versions, printed versions. These my songs basically, because most of them are up to this day available only from recordings, and people who want to sing them have to take dictation basically from recordings, and I wanted to change that and to publish them right away. So that was more entertaining music, of course, and organ, festive symphony is very dramatic work. I never had such a difficult time. Yes, you're right. I was fascinated by how you were successful in creating this polyphonic texture. Because when I was playing this work, it's so easy to play, but also similar to my hands. Perhaps you have my similar hands to mine, but all these thematical play of thematic melodies are very polyphonic and very fits to this instrument. And I noticed that in these repetitions, when episodes are repeated, they are not repeated note for note, verbatim, that each repetition is a little different. Am I right? Yes, you're right. At one episode, melodies are a little bit different from the rest. So I even took a pencil and circled some of the so-called mistakes, in my opinion, because I wasn't sure whether the composer used these accidental different notes just in a few places in the repetitions, or it was maybe a central and vital part. Am I right? So this kind of variation work was basically essential in creating this musical story. I'm happy, Vidas, that you mentioned this idea, because one of my stylistical features is to always to create variations. My most main compositional method is variation. Even in creating large-scale works, whenever I write an episode, I right away start to vary the melodies in second and third repeats, because I don't believe in exact repetition, because music has to be unpredictable, like a living organism. And if organists feel this living character, then performances can be successful. But not always organists feel that, and sometimes the performance might be dry and unmusical. I would say it's similar like in paintings, because when you look at the paintings, this idea that painter or artist left in the work sometimes is not visible. You see only on the surface things, but you have to have the patience to look more deeply, many more times. And if you do that at home or in the gallery or in the museum, then the understanding of this work, in this case a painting, becomes deeper and deeper. And I noticed the same thing with your work, because at the beginning I felt some ideas you created in this work, modern features, dissonant sounds, modal ideas. But the more I played that, the more I noticed, the more I studied it work, the more it started to speak to me. Right? So, and these strange modes and temperaments create different stories every time I look at them. Not at first, right? But when time passes, the organist has the possibility to deepen one's relationship with this work, and I try to stay away of the notion I like it or I do not like it, because when I like it, it's very simple, right? And there is nothing more to say, and or when I don't like it, then I sort of block my understanding of the work. So I try to be open-minded about the unfamiliar work. Well, I have to admit that some organists told me about how they were unhappy about my works because my works are difficult to memorize because of the constant variation. But that's all right, of course, because the performer has to spend considerable time learning, and the more you practice, the better it gets, right? And if the work is very understandable from the first place, from the first sight, then it lacks, I think, depth. And you know what's more interesting? You mentioned the creative process you created in 3 months. Didn't you feel that this music came sort of from external source, from above, like a muse would fly by your window, and if you are ready to and sitting at the table at your desk, maybe the muse would sort of inspire the entire work for you, and you just not take dictation. Am I right? Well, entire second movement was written like that because I felt like this being, this muse, sort of inspired me the entire work in a different way than the first movement or the third movement. And in this movement, ending of the second movement is strange F sharp major key, especially on this organ, and it sounded very, very mysteriously. Composer, I noticed that some of the creators saw the sounds of music in colors. Do you also have such an ability? Not necessarily in colors, but perhaps in feelings, in moods. Yes, because there is big difference between F major chord or F sharp major chord on this instrument, because of this temperation, because some of the keys might sound even out of tune, but I like it a lot. Yes, I like it a lot because some of the sounds are especially dissonant and some of them are less dissonant and colorful. And these temperations create different vibrations. So I don't know if I would see the colors F sharp major would maybe perhaps mean me dark red, perhaps. Maybe. And the third movement, in that movement I saw quite a bit of humor, even Hindemith style humor. And I was fascinated by the change of these rhythmical ideas, because in 4/4 meter, which is written at the beginning of the third part, because there are real great rhythmical fluctuations, not so many metrical changes, but rhythmical changes. Basically, strong beats don't coincide with the strong beats of the measure. And this fast movement, third movement, has a great contrast with the second movement, long and slow movement, which I will play starting with the very pianissimo sounds of this organ and start to make a little bit crescendo and then diminuendo at the end as well. Professor, in the finale of this work, in the third movement, I saw strange modal decisions, because one hand would often play in one mode and another hand in another mode. Isn't that what we call bitonality or bimodality? Yes, you are exactly right. These things, because these things make many colorful things possible, and the greatest master of all was Maurice Ravel from France and other French composers as well. Well, you mentioned modal writing of yours, and I remember some of the modes by Olivier Messiaen. For example, this octatonic mode, half tone, hold tone, half tone, hold tone. In the first mode, in the first movement, this mode is interestingly enough transposed for a long period. Nothing more happens besides this mode. Like half of the work is created using this mode only, and it's very, very colorful, because it's like a painting in one color, but different shades of color. In addition, I also saw a whole tone scale. How do you like the mode which lacks half tones, semitones? Yes, I do like it, but I use it sparingly, because these whole tones sort of are tend to move in circle and tend to keep you in one mood, and usually you have to get out of one mood pretty quickly. But I would say, Professor, that in those special occasions when you use whole tone mode, they work really well. And I also enjoyed your another feature, how you create long developmental sections, crescendo, crescendo, crescendo. But this crescendo is very gradual and natural for this mechanical action organ, because you thought about the organist who will be changing stops and created those special rests in each hand to take a stop or two and pull it. Yes, you have to be very careful with stop changes, and I was very conscious about that while writing. Yes, we mentioned meters, fluctuating meters and modes, also strange meter, variety of meters, 5/4, 6/4 meter. This is a lively play of the meters. But what interesting was to me to notice that the melody, the theme, for example, is grouped not necessarily in measures, in metrical ideas, but these phrases go across the measure. The phrasing itself go across the measure. And yes, I have to be I was very conscious of that, because in many of my works the phrases really go across the measure, because this makes the music come alive. And is there anything else that I didn't mention before in your work that was influence to you? Well, these Lithuanian intonations, these small three-note figures, C, D, F, or D, F, G, for example. These elements. These are not citations of musical songs, but general ideas taken from natural folk music character. This six sonata symphony, how is it different from the previous work, from the fifth sonata, for example? Is it a new period in your compositional life? I would say so. Maybe it's more solid, maybe it's more dramatic. Maybe the fifth and the fourth are quite illustrative and programmatic, I would say, sonatas in my life. And this sixth sonata is not. The first sonata is very different from them all, because it was the first sonata in Lithuanian modern times. The first sonata. I created the first sonata for organ, and the first sonata reminds of Hindemith, probably. And in this sixth symphony, I had this idea that I had to have a good balance between the moods, a good balance in terms of texture and form. What about in your non-programmatic works, in other? Can you say that programmatic ideas exist in non-programmatic works, like in sonatas? Can you say that? Only in fourth and fifth. Number 4 is a prayer for Lithuanian, and number 5 is choral sonata. And number 4 is written in memory of my mom. And when I was selecting the chorale chants for the fourth sonata, maybe it was some kind of unconscious decision, or a muse, or some kind of external power which showed me the necessary the chant. I wasn't looking for that deep ideas. I was only looking for intonations, good intonations for my work. But somehow I was led to this melody, which was very powerful also to me spiritually. All right. So this was very like a golden fount. This citation called Pacem relingva vobis, Gregorian chant. Take my peace. I leave my peace with you, basically, the words of Christ. So I'm very impressed with your deep sense of insight in your works, because Gregorian chant is, of course, the treasure of Western civilization. Yes, you're right. Of course, in these Gregorian chant melodies, you can find everything, forms that are created in later times, all these inspirations that composers used from the Gregorian chant, you can find them. Yes, and the sound is very archaic. Yes, I like it very much, these things. Well, perhaps organ is an instrument which helps synthesize cultural ideas, cultural treasures, but also in a new way, a different, unique way, original way. Because you always take those ancient ideas and create something new, something which hasn't been done before. I would say that the listeners can be transformed and transferred to the places in distant past. All right. And I even imagine we could create a program for your work, like festive symphony sonata, and let our listeners to read during our performance. So thank you so much, dear professor. I'm fascinated by your compositions. What's next for you? I hope that you will come up with more symphonies, and I hope that your creative output will continue. But first of all, I wish you good health, because it's very important for creative person to feel capable of creating, because when you don't feel good, you cannot really write. Although when the person is in deep pain, maybe good musical works can also happen. No, not for me. Not for me. I have to feel good when I'm creating. When I'm in pain, what can you create? You have to take pills when you're in pain, not create music. Okay, let's remind our listeners that our premiere performance of your festive sonata symphony will take place this Saturday at Vilnius University St. John's Church on the largest pipe organ in Lithuania. By the way, I will also perform something else on this occasion, because at the first half of this concert I will improvise a musical story on the interesting theme, because on the ceiling of our church there is an interesting fresco from the life of St. John's, with episodes of St. John's. So I will take a few frescoes, details of these frescoes, and create a musical story, improvised musical story out of these frescoes. Right? And then we will finish this work this evening with the first premiere performance with the 6th sonata symphony, which we call festive sonata symphony. So your presence and ideas today, dear professor, also inspire me to create, and I hope it will inspire our listeners to create. Because it's very important to create. It doesn't matter what tools do you use to create. Either paint or musical ideas or even a hammer. It's so important to create, right? Because only the creation keeps us alive. Thank you so much. You're welcome. If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog Secrets of Organ Playing at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas Pinkevicius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.